Morning, everyone. Welcome to the July 23rd, 2019 meeting of Henderson County Fiscal Court. We're glad you're with us today. And we're going to begin, as we always do, with an invocation. So if you all would please stand. Dear God, please be with our community and with this body today as we endeavor to do the work of the public and help our community prosper. Please look over our court, everybody in the audience today, and the residents of our county. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Magistrate Southard.
Here.
Magistrate Moran.
Here.
Magistrate Putman.
Here.
Magistrate McCollum.
Here.
Magistrate Berry.
Here.
Thank you. You have before you the minutes of the July 9th Henderson County Fiscal Court meeting after a period of review. We have a motion and a second. Any other corrections, additions, or clarifications? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, we have members of the staff of Kindle with us today to give their quarterly update. Welcome, CEO Tony Riddy.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, magistrates, for giving us a few minutes here this morning. We're going to try to go through this pretty quickly, but we've got a lot of information that we want to try and get out to you today. As you can see with the logo, last year we went through and rebooted the Chamber of Commerce logo as well as the Economic Development logo. But as you see, that it's powered by Kindle. So the Kindle structure has never gone away. It's still in the same place. It's just that the Henderson County Chamber of Commerce is only one county, where Kindle was multiple counties for economic development. And we added back into it the Northwest Kentucky, just so that people can understand visually when they see that logo where that might be within the universe. We're going to go through some of these things. I'm going to go through pretty quickly, but this is kind of the agenda we're going through. And in your packet, we put together for you the Henderson County Economic Overview. And you'll hear me refer to some of these statistics today. This is a software package that we invested in that allows us to get a lot of data, a lot of information from it to look forward as to where we want to be going forward in the economic development community as well as just the community in general. And we'll have copies of the presentation if you want that available afterwards in hard copy, or we can send it to you electronically as well. This slide I think you've seen many times. We've used this over the years, and it shows kind of our dashboard to give just a quick breakdown and synopsis of where we came from, where we are. On the left side of the screen is the current year. Unfortunately, it was not as good a year as what we had hoped it would be. When the Ignite campaign took flight back 5 years ago, there were certain metrics that were put into place. If you look on the right side of the screen, the two of those metrics were to achieve $200 million in new capital expansions and to generate about 1,500 jobs. So when you look at the left, back to the left side, for the current year, we didn't do so well. We only hit 17% of our goal of $40 million in CapEx and only 24% of our jobs. But on the overall thus far for the first 3 years, and we still have 2 years to go on that Ignite campaign, is that we're at about 65% of the total goal in CapEx and about 41% of the total jobs created. So We'll talk a little bit more later when I have Whitney come up and tell you about the expansions that occurred, because all of what you see on the left side of that were from existing industries. Those were no new industries, all existing industries. Again, with the software that we have now, we're able to generate what the economic impact and when you look at it from the overall period of time, not just this current year, but we have 616 new jobs that were created beginning 3 years ago, which, based on the software algorithms, that relates to about 180 indirect jobs, which are suppliers and things of that nature that needed to expand along with it. And the induced is that those jobs that, because there are now more people working in the community and they have more disposable income, places like the fast food restaurants and restaurants in general and clothing stores have to increase theirs as well. So that's what induced means when they talk about it. So the economic impact of those 616 jobs in compensation is about $30 million in new compensation, and the capital investment was about $130 million, right around $130 million. And so you can see over that 3-year period thus far, about $160 million direct impact for what we've done so far. The next slide, what I'd like to do is I want to bring up Noah Abner, who is our intern for the summer, and ask him to go over the next 2 slides with you. Noah?
Hello, I'm Noah Abner. I'm a student at the University of Kentucky, and I'm interning with Kendall over the summer. So the first slide here is the demographic profile that compares Henderson, Davis, and Hopkins County. So when businesses are looking in this area, they're going to compare us to people or counties that are similar to us. And the first statistic is population, which we have a higher population than Hopkins County, but only slightly, and we're about half of Davis County. Our workforce participation rate, which is the number of people available for work as a percentage of the population, which includes employed and unemployed workers, is higher than Hopkins County and lower than Davis County. Our poverty level is 19.3%, which is the amount of people that are below the poverty line. And our median household income is $43,000, which is below Davis and Hopkins County. Our per capita income is $23,000, which is higher than Hopkins and lower than Davis County. Next is a cost of living comparison. So another thing that businesses are going to look for whenever they're looking to relocate or create a new operation is what the cost of living is going to be for their employees. And this is also comparing Henderson, Davis, and Hopkins. And as you can see, Henderson has a lower cost of living than Davis County, and we pay more on average for salary than Davis and Hopkins County, and our purchasing power is more than Davis and Hopkins County. And the next slide is GDP, and I'm going to give that back to Tony to talk.
I have to tell you, this has been a good learning experience for Kendall, as well as hopefully it's been for Noah as well. Noah's his major is in economics and his minor is in statistics. So when we're going through these numbers and looking at them, he's able to correlate some of those, as you heard. And I think what we've heard in the past is that when we report to Fiscal Court or the City Commission, that they would like to see these comparisons because people want to know what other folks are doing as well. And in some cases, we're not doing as well as others, but I think you'll see something as we go along here that'll show you that we're not doing as bad as maybe what people might think. The gross domestic product, just a quick definition of it, that's the total of goods and services that are produced, and in this particular case, we're comparing the counties. So the three counties that we've looked at through there are obviously Henderson, Davis, and Hopkins County. So when you look at Henderson, as you can see, the numbers on the bottom there, that since 2010, right, since they're coming out of the recession in 2010, Henderson County has experienced 8 straight years of continued growth. And in the past year, it was 4.3%. And when you look at the other counties, Davis was only 7 out of 8. Obviously, in the year past, they had a little better year GDP-wise. And, of course, Hopkins, you can see that total and as well. Over that time period, Henderson grew about 31.8% in their GDP. So that means that our businesses may be doing more with less, but they're really becoming more efficient, more effective. Davis County over that same period was only 25% increase, and Hopkins County unfortunately had a 4% decrease, a lot of that having to do with coal mines and those things. So that's a good one to look at. And with all of these things, what we're trying to find are other methods to measure our success. You know, we typically look at new jobs and we look at investment, but there are other things out there that go into this whole measure, and that's what a lot of these will do for us. Just quickly to show you the top 3 industries, probably no surprise to anybody. Manufacturing is our number 1 industry in Henderson County. Healthcare is behind that, and then the retail trade is the third. The things that I want to point out to you is if you look at this location quotient, that's what basically, if you think of the United States as being the average of being 1, any number above or below that tells you how you're doing in comparison to the U.S. average. And so from location quotient, that means that we have about 3 times more manufacturing than what the average is across the United States. So that tells us, from an economic development standpoint, that's probably our target industries that we need to look at. Secondarily, then, healthcare is another industry that we need to take a look at as well. And if you look at those annual wages, you can see that in manufacturing that we're almost at $60,000 a year as being the average annual wages. So trying to convince younger folks to go into the manufacturing world, these are numbers that we can show them to point out that it is a good career. Just quickly, we kind of broke that down into the top 5 occupations, and again, no surprise, production occupations are our number 1 area because of so much manufacturing and the entry level into that. The unemployment rate, this is just a chart to show you what you already know, that Henderson County, our latest unemployment rate, 3.5%, and it compares to about the same in Davis County, and in Hopkins County, theirs is right at about 4.1. But you can see with that chart how it's gone down from 2010 to the current time frame. This one is a really interesting one, and I just like the way it looks. You got to really understand it to figure it out. But if you look at Henderson County, is the shaded blue area, and it shows the wage trends that have occurred over time frame. And we're still doing research trying to figure out what happened in that 2012 to 2014 time frame that dipped us down below. But as you can see, that coming right out of that then, a very steep climb into 15, and then as we go through, as it is currently, that what we've seen in Henderson County, the trend is about a 2.7% increase in wages.
Tony, I'm sorry to interrupt. 2012-13 is when 2 coal mines closed here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That answers our question there then. And so you'll see then with Davis County in comparison, only trending at about 1.7% increase in wages, and Hopkins County very far behind at 0.5%. Now I'm going to ask Whitney to come up. She's going to tell you a little bit about the expansions that occurred in the existing industries and what we do from her standpoint. Whitney heads up our existing industry group and deals with all the local companies on a daily basis.
Hello.
Good morning.
As he said, I'm Whitney Risley, and I do work with the existing industries in our area. So first, I'll talk about the Industry Leaders Group. This is a group that we have established for about 2 years now. So it is any of your top-level management of an industry here that has come together to share best practices, hear about a common topic that it may be a pain point for everyone in our area. It really has been a good group that they have been willing to share information and collaborate together and kind of open some eyes and doors for potential businesses. Just recently, the industry leaders met to talk about I-69 with specific detailed information about the impact of truck traffic that I-69 will have, as well as the workforce, with industries in our area having employees across the river as well. They wanted to talk about what impact that may have coming in their future. The group also has heard about workforce, state and local incentives, and the process for a company to expand and how we can help assist with them. As Tony mentioned, with some of the previous graphs, and especially the capital investment that you saw had increased more so than the jobs. In this group, the industries had expressed over the next year, many of them will be making some capital investments for improvement of their equipment or facility, and not necessarily adding any new jobs along with that capital investment. And they have said that is simply to help retain some of their current employees. If they are able to better some of their equipment, then the employees would value that and more likely stay rather than look for other employment elsewhere. Along with the industry leaders group, we also established a safety summit, and so that is a group of environmental health and safety professionals in the industries that have gotten together, similar to the industry leaders group, to talk about some of their pain points. We recently had a meeting to discuss training for confined spaces, and this group would next like to talk about industrial recycling. This has kind of been introduced to the group, and the group really thinks that is going to take off a little bit as the industries try to look at being more green, use some renewables, and see how they can eliminate as much waste as possible within their facility. The next group that we have that meets is the Workforce Coalition, and this is made up of HR professionals as well as some plant managers to talk about some of the pain points in workforce, since we hear that workforce is an issue for almost everyone. This group has detailed the current state of workforce issues here in our area, as well as identified the jobs that they currently have open in entry, mid, and management levels, and we kind of dug a little deeper to look at what skills each of those companies require for each of those position levels, and it really varied. A company may be asking for the same skill, but they may call it something different. So it was just good to get everyone on a common ground to try to help move this workforce issue along. Next, I'll talk about the existing industry visits, and so this is the majority of where my work comes from. Is I'll meet with existing industries in our area to discuss how their business is going, what issues they may have, how we can be a resource for them. And this is also the opportunity to talk to them if they have potential to expand and make capital investment within their facility, to see how we can help both locally here or at the state with incentives. So I'll go into a little more detail about the capital investment and jobs that have been added over this past year. Tony had mentioned they were all within existing industries. And we had Electric Motors, who I'm sure you all have noticed, moved locations off of the 41 Strip. They have now moved on to Ohio Drive. Their investment, additional capital investment, was $25,000 and adding one job. SET Industrial also moved locations, but they didn't move far. They just moved next door on Ohio Drive, and so we helped find a potential building for them and make sure that all their specs were met, and that was $750,000 worth of capital investment and 20 new jobs. And I know that they continue to look and hire for those new jobs as well. The next expansion that occurred is now called SCAPS Industries. That was formerly Matrix Composite, is located on the 425 bypass. They made a $5 million investment, and that was on their existing building. So they will be seeing some improvements on their current facility, as well as adding 20 new jobs. The next is Columbia Sportswear Distribution, located out at the 4-Star Industrial Park. They had a quick expansion due to needing to move inventory from one of their other locations to the location out in Roberts, so they made a $700,000 investment in 25 new jobs. I know they were moving quickly on that, so I'm sure they are trying to ramp up their employment of those 25 new jobs right now. Lastly, that has finalized in the end of June is Tri-State Construction and Hauling. They will be building a building out by the Riverport. It is on the corner of the Termo property. If you all are familiar with the Termo property, they have broken ground, and they will be, half of it will be a warehouse space, other portion will be storage of their equipment, and they have started already hauling for some industries in our area, as well as some of their office space. One that I wanted to mention that is not included in those numbers, but was a nice kind of continuous project, is the Nylene, which was formerly Custom Resins. They were able to break ground on their previously announced project. That was back in 2016. They had announced to increase to 40 new jobs, and that was a $8 million investment for a 80,000 square foot building. And they have broken ground and started on that construction, as well as already started to hire a few people for that expansion as well. Part of these visits, as I start looking ahead to this year to make visits with the existing industries, we're going to target some questions based on their suppliers. So we would really like to know, of our existing industries here, who their suppliers may be, and would it make sense to try to bring those suppliers closer and be part of an attraction program here for our area. So it would be a win-win for everyone. So I will start some of those questions and really dive a little deeper into their suppliers as we move forward with those visits this year. One last thing I want to tell you all about is the Talent Pipeline Management. This is a program that was established at the U.S. Chamber and was adopted by the Kentucky Chamber. I am one of the champions for the Talent Pipeline Management Program, and this is a workforce program, like I said, through the Workforce Center at the Kentucky Chamber. There are a few other local individuals that are TPM champions as well, but we have started to move along with the program. We have targeted recently a group of Henderson Industries as well as Evansville Industries with the common goal of the I-69 being, since we all know that the labor shed goes back and forth across the river, we figured that that would be a synergy for everyone. And so they have heard about the TPM program. They are interested in how they could identify some key skills that are their pain points to kind of create a pipeline and get people interested in that line of work to help fulfill those needs that they currently have as well as future needs. So we're just in the beginning of stages with those industries, and so we'll continue meeting with them, and I can update you all on the progress, but I just wanted to let you all know about that new program. So I'm happy to take any questions if you all have anything on existing industries.
I do think one of the most important roles that Kindle plays is touching our existing industries consistently to make sure we keep abreast of what their concerns are. And I think the industry leaders roundtable is an excellent addition. And I think you've heard the stat before that most new jobs, or 70% of new jobs created in any community, are created by existing businesses. So taking care of them and reporting back to us when you can, I think, is really important. It's one of the, I think, most important aspects of Kindle's mission. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, just going to move into the future real quick. Some of the things that we're working on, just so that you know, I think you're aware of this past year, Donna Crooks, who was responsible for much of that economic impact success that I had mentioned earlier. She had been the economic development person for all those years, and we really appreciate that. And she decided to change careers somewhat, and we're really happy for her in that respect. Some of the things that we're doing right now, I want to bring your attention to the FAME program. This is something that actually Judge Snyder started conversations years ago with some of the industries to bring this FAME program into Henderson. We had, I think there were 9 other chapters in the state, and Henderson became or Kindle became the 10th chapter. And what we were able to do over that 3-year period, there were 5 graduates this past spring, and there are 5 in the second year. And the program is a 2-year program that basically the student or the employee works 3 days a week, and they go to school 2 days a week, and at the end of that 2-year period end up with an associate degree in industrial maintenance as well as a certificate in advanced manufacturing technician. So we really are happy that those 5 graduates from the first cohort all went to work for the companies that sponsored them. And I might add that the company actually pays at least 50% of the 2-year degree, as well as pays them for their work time as well. So there's 5 in the second year program, and then we have 7 that just started this year, and so it's starting to take off. And I think that once people saw those graduates and saw that they're going directly into work, having an associate degree coming out of it, it's a tremendous program. What we've been able to do, you can see the logo has changed, is that we've handed this off now to Henderson Community College. Because what the community college and what we've seen over those other chapters is those that are taken on by the community college begin to grow exponentially because they see the benefit of what they're able to provide students and business, and it's really turned out very well. Dr. Warren is really excited about it. He had some experience down in Hopkinsville, so it works out very well. The 2 other pictures that you see up there, what I'll talk about is the 425 bypass property. This obviously is is just an artist rendering of a potential building. But 425 bypass property, you all have been very helpful in putting together to make this one of our premier sites, not only in the state of Kentucky, but all the way through the United States. What we started working on is what's called the CSX Select Site Program. As you can see, where the building is, and just to the right of that is actually the CSX track that runs from the riverport into that site and then goes on out into the main line and goes out. So now what we can show people is we have almost 400 acres that are under option that are there, and that you can tie in the river travel with barge travel to the riverport, unload there, bring it through to the site, put it back on the rail, and head back out on the track. And CSX will say that there's probably only 5 other sites like this in the United States where there's that much acreage, and it has served by rail and by the river and as well. So if you remember this past fall, we talked to you about the TVA monies that went into finishing up the due diligence on that property, which hopefully, once the rest of the narrative is done by the consultant this coming fall, we'll have that certification, and you all will be definitely invited to that celebration because you have been a major part of that all the way through. The second part, as you know, is the 4-star industrial park, of which Henderson County is a major part of. And the site that you see there is a site that was, that square in the center is an engineered building pad that will fit about 150,000 square foot building. So even though we don't currently have any existing buildings that are available for companies, and that's usually most companies want an existing building so they can get in and get started. What we can show them is in about the same amount of time that you'd retrofit that old building, you can build a new one right here. And so we get a lot of leads from the state on this particular property, as well as the site that we call the Sandy Watkins site, which is about a 100-acre site next to Columbia Sportswear. And those are our main functions. Later on in a month or two, Ellen Redding, who's heading up our chamber, is going to come in and she's going to talk to you about some of the changes that are occurring there as well. 2 that I just want to mention that she's been working on the chamber side. One is through the Delta Regional Authority, working with the KCTCS. We are submitting a grant for about $2 million for a workforce grant. It's a competitive grant within the Delta Regional Authority, which I think is 5 states or 6 states that we'd be competing with. But that workforce grant will be working with KCTCS, with the county schools, to create more apprenticeship programs starting at the high school level, rolling into the community college level. And the other one is something they're working on currently with the school system as well, is the Substance Abuse Disorder Task Force, and submitting a grant to we'll have an opioid summit here in Henderson that I think they had one in Louisville not too long ago. It'd be the same thing. It would be to really what can we do to address the opioid problem within our county. So she'll be in to talk about those things. I know I went through and gave you a lot of information, a lot of data, and but if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer those. And one thing for Judge, just some of the websites where this data comes from. The company that we use is a company that collects all this data from a lot of websites out there, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the local area unemployment statistics, National Quarterly Census of Employment and Wages, the OMB, which designates the metropolitan statistical areas, and likewise all the way through the American Community Survey, which I'm sure you've looked at those from time to time as well. So, any questions?
Tony, I got, one of the things I picked up is our average income for Henderson was higher than Davis County and Hopkins County, but yet our poverty level was higher than both. Can you explain to me how that?
If you look at the median household income, the median household income actually is based on where a person lives versus where a person, the per capita income is based on where they work. So when you look at those two, and you can see the differences in there is that our per capita income is about $23,000 in that neighborhood, somewhere in there, and so yeah, that's where to look for those kind of correlations.
Thank you.
I also think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the challenges we have in this community is the number of children born to single parents. And while we are making strides in other parts of our economy, we still have a challenge with children being born into poverty. Of that 55% of children born here born to single parents, 60% are born into households that would qualify as being in poverty. And that has become a growing situation. We have a lot of work to do in that regard. And I know there are a lot of organizations that are working on that diligently, but it remains an issue. So for every segment of our community that's doing better, we have this seemingly intractable portion that remain challenged economically because of circumstances. It is a dichotomy here. And I know that, again, there are a lot of organizations and governmental bodies that are thinking about that. The other, I think, challenge to that is our opioid issue, because that helps keep people in poverty, keep people from holding jobs. I think Ellen Redding has mentioned more than once, and it was an interesting figure, that per 100 people, we have one of the highest rates of opioid prescriptions issued in the state. There was a heat map done that she showed that indicated eastern Kentucky counties, where we think we understand there's a big, huge opioid problem, colored in deep red, and then Henderson County up here in the northwest corner, same color, same issue. It surprised me when I saw it, but it's the case. So I think those poverty issues are exacerbated by that challenge. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this when I talk about economics and state of the county on Thursday. But I do think it's a frustration. It is something that makes you go, why? And there are a lot of factors to that.
Tony, I know if you looked into your crystal ball, is there anything laying out there that we're looking at? And if we were to land industry of some sort, is the availability of the workforce here?
Yeah.
I know we're workforce ready, but do those numbers, would they match up where we could even fill the jobs?
To answer your questions, we do it in two parts. We have two projects right now that we're working on. One for that 425 bypass property, which would be a significant number of jobs, and one for the four-star park that would be a reasonable number of jobs and investment. When we look at when these companies, when we're talking to them, we use the numbers for the Evansville metropolitan statistical area, because that's what Henderson is part of. When Evansville, and when they are looking at companies, they're using the MSA numbers as well, which include Henderson. So when we talk in those terms, and you look at the numbers of workers that are within that metropolitan statistical area, yes, there are. The bigger question is that in the type of industry coming in, do we have enough of those workers with the right skills to be able to fill the jobs that they're looking for? With this software that we have now, we can look at those numbers across the MSA and know how many people are working in those with those skills and how many are unemployed with those types of skills. And then it just becomes a matter of going out and getting them and finding them. So it's both. We have the sheer numbers when we look at the MSA. Typically, companies will ask us, "Well, tell me how many people, what's the population and the workforce within 30-mile radius or 45-mile radius." And the 30-mile radius takes in just about all of the MSA. 45-mile radius goes as far as Princeton and is down to Madisonville and includes Davis and all the way to the west. So when you pull those numbers together, then we can at least put that out. Then when you start drilling down, that's where it might get a little dicey.
Are we doing anything to counteract that? I'm assuming we're talking about higher technology jobs. I know the FAME program is an excellent program. That's one stab at it. But to take it any further, is there anything in the plans as how we can get that skill set that we're looking for, maybe looking for?
Yeah, and in this Delta Regional Grant, that's one of the things they'll be looking at is different types of apprenticeships in the high-demand jobs that we don't have people to fill those skills. So, yeah, that'll be one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, I think, that the schools are doing, K through 12, is becoming more STEM learning type of schools as well, because with science, technology, engineering, math, it doesn't matter. We always talk about like industrial maintenance. When folks went out to fix a machine that broke on the line, they went out with a tool belt. Today they go out with a laptop.
Computer, yeah.
So all of that stuff has to happen as it grows, and I think that's what the school systems are working towards, is getting more STEM learning, even back down at the early ages, and bringing it through. Because no matter when you get into those production jobs, and you're moving through into it, you need to have that learning.
Yeah, and anyway, if we ever get any infrastructure legislation that we're nationally, we're negative over 7 million jobs probably in skilled trades, so Kentucky could get ahead of the curve if they would start that apprenticeship program back up that they had years ago that helped pave the way for some very good paying jobs. Thank you, Tony.
If I could just make a comment. You were talking about the poverty and what, Brad, you said about the people born out of single-family homes. And I don't know exactly the solutions. I mean, our county attorney does such a good job, and that's good. We've got one of the best housing authorities in probably the nation, and we've got Indiana across the river, where if you have 3 children, they don't give you any extra money. So people move here to Henderson because of the child support collection. A mother on AFDC, I think, still gets the first $50 of child support, so that's $600 extra a year. And that's important to these people because that's a significant amount of money. So I've got mixed feelings about it. I don't know what you do about it. And then at our health department meeting that we had last week, I think one of the solutions is the HANDS program that the health department does, which is absolutely great. They go in with a nurse and they go into their homes and they help these young people. But they have to catch them before the child's born or within the first 90 days, or they can't qualify for the program, which seems idiotic to me, but that's the way our government works. But we've only got 20 people in Henderson County using the HANDS program. And I don't know what we need to do to get that more, where people can see, what the benefits of not doing drugs and, how this is going to help my child develop. And, I grew up in a single-family home, but my mother wanted me to have a better life than she had, and so forth. And I think that's what everybody up here wants, but I don't think a lot of people understand that. And if you're a drug addict, you absolutely can't think about it. So I don't know what the solutions. I just know that. But anything we could do to push the HANDS program and get that to more people, I think, would be beneficial to our community.
I've heard that more than once over the last few years. And Steve, you were leaning in there.
I was going to agree. The HANDS program for years, Henderson has had one of the lowest implementation rates of that HANDS program, which is getting a nurse in the home of expectant mothers to help them with child development and things like that. I also think, to Tony's point earlier, and I know I mentioned this a lot to folks, but I think it's the implementation here of a Boys and Girls Club is going to help with some of that ability for labor participation, because some of those folks that are having to choose between caring for their child and working, they're going to be able to, for $1 a month, have after-school care in a safe, productive environment for the kids. So I think that's going to be an opportunity where we can get more people into the labor force as well. And I think that that's due in part that both the fiscal court and the city of Henderson are supporting that Boys and Girls Club, and I think many Kendall members are as well. And I think that's a really important thing to note, that I think that's something where we can attack some of that issue there a little bit.
You're exactly right. The two biggest hindrances for certain populations to go to work are child care and transportation.
And Brookings Institute did a study over time about how do people successfully move from poverty into middle class or more. And they hit upon three things, and they're all personal choices, really. Number one, if you graduate high school. Number two, if you get a job, any job, get into the workforce. And number three, if you wait till you're at least 21 and married to have a child. If everybody that did those three things, not everybody, 76% of the people who did those three things moved from poverty to middle class or beyond. The people who did not do any of those three things, 76% ended up staying in poverty. So graduate high school, get a job, wait to get married till you have a kid. And now how you communicate that and get people on the right track is the challenge, obviously. But the recipe's not complex, but the solutions are to that. And I think that's part of our challenge here and part of our workforce challenge. So there's a lot of work to do, but I think the future's bright, and I appreciate you being here today. We're going to try to help any way we can with that workforce issue, and I think the Boys and Girls Club's a great start, and FAME program's a great thing. And so people are trying to tackle these issues, but it's not easy. Any other questions for Tony? Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Kurt, for putting us on first, and I apologize to my colleagues for taking so long.
No problem. Thank you again. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two appointments, one to Planning Commission, one to the Board of Zoning Adjustments. They would be reappointments to the Planning Commission. David Williams has agreed or would like to seek reappointment to the Planning Commission. That is supported by both the Executive Director and the Chairman of the Planning Commission Board. And I would entertain a motion to reappoint David Williams to the Henderson City County Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same situation for the County Board of Zoning Adjustments. Jane Barong has asked to be reappointed. Again, the executive staff and the chairman are strongly in favor of that reappointment. Jane's a valuable member of Board of Zoning Adjustments, so I'd entertain a motion to reappoint Jane Barong to the BOZA Board.
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Animal control reports. Kendra Gallagher-Strong and Debbie Edwards are with us, and you have some good news.
No, Kendra.
Oh.
You got me again.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I thought you changed your name. No.
My apologies.
That's okay. Good morning, magistrates.
Good morning.
And Stephen Gold. How are you guys this morning?
Good.
Enjoying this little bit cooler weather, huh?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I'm here to introduce to you our new operations manager, Debbie Edwards. I had told you at our last meeting that we were splitting the job of the executive director into two distinct jobs. One is operations manager, and one would be marketing and PR. And so we're still working on that position, but Debbie assumed her role officially last Monday? Tuesday. So I give you Debbie.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Good morning, Kurt. You guys mostly have met me before. I have been a board member for several years. I'm very passionate about this position and very eager to take it on. I apologize for the late copies of the data that you got this morning. We will try to get those to you a little bit sooner so you have time to look at them. End of fiscal year reports, the numbers are pretty astronomical of the amount of animals that were taken in. Just to run this by you, we had animal control calls on paid time on calls 1,069 last fiscal year. Most of them are stray dogs. It's just, it averages to 21 a week. It's outstanding. We are hiring a third animal control officer. We have to have another one. There's just no way around it. The numbers that you see, we had 662 stray intakes last fiscal year. Owner surrenders were 265. That being said, this month alone, we've had 77 owner surrenders just in July, and today is the 23rd. So, my goal in the immediate future is hopefully to get with you guys and talk about, things that we've touched on before about a committee to update some ordinances, maybe get something going with a mandatory spay and neuter program or a spay and neuter clinic, something that we can do to cut down on the population because we can't house them all. We're full. We're completely full. So I may be reaching out to you guys in the future. If you have any questions or advice, please feel free to contact me or any of the board members. I want to incorporate some education into the school systems with animal control on how to go about being a responsible pet owner. I think that would cut down the numbers dramatically if they're just taught how to properly care for an animal. We do have the final interviews. I think Emma told you. We have started some open cleanup days at the shelter. As you know, the building is quite old and is in some basic needs of just updating and repairing. We're going to open these up to the public. It's just a cleanup volunteer day. The board all pitches in. We're hanging new shutters. We're cleaning. We're getting it cleaned up to at least have a decent curb appeal when somebody comes into the building. We're working on some new ventilation. We do have a grant for some of that. Of course, the rest is fundraisers. We're having an adopt-a-thon Saturday at Rural King to try to move some animals. All the rescues are full. Everybody has jumped in 110%. So I couldn't be happier with the direction that it's going. I hope to continue moving forward, and I take all the advice you have to offer. I think that's it.
Well, thank you. I would definitely say public education is the key. Obviously I have people who are adopting or buying pets that don't have the ability to actually care for them.
Right.
And
being an open intake facility, if you're from the Henderson County, we have to take them in. Yeah. And I don't want them to feel devastated to the point that the stigma has. If you bring your dog in, we're going to put it to sleep. I want to change that because that is clearly not the case.
I am interested in the two frogs. Not to make light of anything, but that was a surprising stat on this sheet. I hope they find good homes.
Yeah, the frogs have been rehomed. We still have the guinea pigs. We do. Mm-hmm. Most of them is they either aren't spay and neutered and they have puppies, or they financially cannot feed and take care of them and vet them properly. which kind of falls back on the city-county tags as well. You know, we only get a handful of people that actually come in and purchase those. Most of the animals we get have not been rabies vaccinated or anything.
So what do we need to do about our ordinances to change?
Well, we've done a lot of research on other facilities, and they actually charge a small fee for owner surrenders, and they do it by appointment only. Just our owner surrenders, you know, on any given day, it is a non-stop revolving door. The person at the front desk, you know, waits on them, and, you know, we're averaging 58 phone calls a day just since I've been there in a week. 58 phone calls a day, and we have 2 lines, and it's just incredible the amount of people who need help with their pets. So I feel like, while I don't want to enforce a fee, you know, it's an option to look at. Even if it's $5 or $10, it could at least, you know, it's an average of $20 to $30 a day for us to house a dog. Between the cleaning, the food, the vaccinations, the flea meds, the staff to take care of them and clean them. And if we have 68 dogs currently, times, let's just say $20 a day, you know, we don't have the funds to do that. So if somebody, you know, that may increase the amount of strays we have, because honestly, if they are on poverty level and they can't afford to feed their dog, they can't afford to pay a surrender fee. So they're just going to be more strays. So I'm not really sure exactly the answer. We're searching, we're brainstorming, we're trying to figure out a way to help them and help these animals, because them sad eyes looking at you every day through those cages is tough. And I have to promise my husband every day I will not bring home another animal.
My office has worked with some of the past directors as far as identifying some other ordinances around the state. We're glad to work with you in that. The fiscal court is currently undergoing an ordinance review process where we're kind of taking a look at every ordinance out there and seeing what needs to be updated. And the animal control ordinances are in sad need of update because the state has never really updated its state laws. So they're leaving it to the localities to really do something about some of these issues. So to the extent you see other communities out there that are taking positive approaches to this, please get with me or somebody on my staff, and we'd be glad to work with you about how we could translate that into something that might work here. Okay?
A spay and neuter requirement would be the least financial strain on them, I believe, and cut down on the overpopulation. But I will definitely be in touch with you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, the frogs aside, I think this is borderline crisis, both in expense for a viable, humane society and public health. I mean, if we implement rules that prompt people to just let their pets go and we end up with strays, that gets into public health and quality of life issues and safety and various other things that will still end up back in the lap of the Humane Society and our animal control officers. So this is a problem. It's a problem.
And just the lack of, education, again, on responsible pet ownership. It is very serious that I have at least 3 to 5 people per day that will surrender their dogs and then walk down the hall and ask to adopt a puppy same day. And they don't understand when I explain why they can't. So we have to spay and neuter our pets.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Well, thank you for the report. Good luck, and I do think the marketing person will help with this effort.
Yes.
And, please come back and let us know what we can do.
I sure will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emma,
Sir.
I'm assuming that issue was resolved, to my knowledge, when I went by there, that we had talked about.
The house to be condemned.
Well, that property.
We have not been able to locate the dogs since the people removed them.
But the house is going under renovation.
The this young man moved in and tore
Well,
the outside.
the bigger part of the issue was the animals. Did y'all,
We have never been able to
Couldn't
find them
track 'em?
once they moved out with them. We were wanting to do a well
Yeah.
care checkup on them, and we've never been able to locate them.
there's people working over there, I think, pretty regular, so if he was going to follow up on it
Yeah,
as to maybe what happened to those animals.
we can sure try.
Yeah. But anyway, I knew the house was being taken care of, and it's being improved greatly.
And we appreciate that. If I could add one more little scenario to, when you said the word crisis, it is a near crisis. It truly is, because one day, it was last week when it was raining so hard, right? Yeah. And we got a call about some dogs running wild and attacking an elderly neighbor, and the dog actually bit the elderly neighbor. And they were two dogs that was a male and a female, and the female is with puppies as we speak, and they have been trained to be vicious to the point where we could not get them into our animal control vehicle to transport them to the Humane Society. 2 of our employees, in the pouring down rain, had to walk these dogs on a leash, with these dogs dragging them from the residence all the way to the Humane Society to get them in. So we are at a crisis point. We have to do something. We have residents that are in danger. This dog bit this gentleman, and actually the other dog went after a police officer, and we sent 3 of our employees out there to try to, stop this from happening. So,
Do we still have anybody trained to use the tranquilizer?
we
Run.
Just one person currently. We actually don't have tranquilizers.
Yeah, we don't have them. That's one of the issues.
It's on my list to send it
Yeah.
here, though.
So I appreciate you recognizing that it is at crisis level, because it really is, And I'm like Debbie, you walk back there and look at these little eyes, these souls staring at you, wondering what they did to get put there.
It's not their fault.
It's not their fault. Their owners just aren't responsible.
They're not like us, right?
No, they're not. We spoil ours rotten.
Please follow our Facebook page as well, because we do post a lot of animals on there. You can share it at least if you
Okay.
can't.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
just
and I'll drive by there and take a look.
Yeah, the properties look, well, you can drive by, you can see, but there may be somebody in there that could give you some information as to what.
There may be
We just
somebody
hope
in there
that
I
we
wanna
just hope
punch.
the animals got taken care of, so.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's our bottom line.
Yeah. Thank you,
know.
Emma. Appreciate it.
You guys
Thank
have a
you.
good day.
Thank you, Debbie.
If I could have Jailer Brady come to the podium, please, to briefly discuss the next item on your list, the securing of a inmate telephone services contract with Securus. And if you just want to give us another quick background on this little effort to determine a vendor.
Securus is our current vendor and has been for years. We put the inmate phone service out for bids or proposals, I guess it was, and decided to keep Securus based on the offering and the customer service that they provide.
I think we briefly mentioned this in past fiscal court meetings and her effort to get a bid process going and pick a vendor. Any other questions on this, Jailer Brady?
Yes, and it is approved as to form and legality, and Jailer Brady, this will represent a significant savings to the inmate as
Correct.
well, won't it? And an increase in the income for the jail, so it kind of is a win from both standpoints, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir. It's a win-win situation. Currently, some of the inmate to family phone calls are $9 to $15. That's the cost for a 15-minute call, total fees and all. This will take the calls down to at the most, and it would be an international call, $7.02, and that would be international. Calls for interstate and intralida calls would be around $6 total.
And the one of the reasons that that prior contract had gotten so high was that Jay Libretti's predecessor had a contract with Securus, and it never got bid out. So what would happen is there would just be addendums and amendments made to that contract, just kind of kicking the can down the road. So all the rates were set at, what was it, 16, 17 years ago rates, and there's been so much of a change within that industry that it's really to Jay Libretti's credit that she arranged to make sure this got put out for bids, and there were, I believe, 3 really competitive bids that got put out there, and it really was a benefit both to the jail and to the inmates as far as what the final result was.
We're going from first minute the phone call, $3.27, and 52 cents each additional minute to 20 cents per minute total for the calls. So.
The date at the time that they did this, it did not. As far as it's just going to be a small amount of overlap. So I don't think that. Yeah. And we've broached that topic with Securus, and they've not had any concerns about that.
If you don't have a problem, I make a motion to approve.
I second.
We need to read the resolution.
I'm sorry.
Resolution authorizing Henderson County Jailer to agreement with Securus Technologies Incorporated. Whereas the Henderson County Detention Center recently solicited bids to provide inmate telephone services at the facility, whereas after due consideration of all bids and proposals from various providers, the Henderson County Jailer has determined the proposal presented by Securus Technologies Incorporated to be the best for the county and for the inmates. Whereas the Henderson County Fiscal Court hereby accepts the recommendation of the jailer, now therefore be it resolved as follows. That the Henderson County Fiscal Court hereby authorizes and directs Jailer Amy Brady to execute the attached Securus Master Services Agreement along with the additional schedules and exhibits thereto, and to execute any and all other necessary and appropriate documents required to effectuate the intent thereof.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments on that? Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for getting this contract back on a practice of being bid out. I appreciate that.
We're working on. We're down to, I think, the very last one. So.
Any other items to report from the detention center?
Now, the parole office building, they are installing the HVAC system. They've been working on that this week. Doors are in, painted, walls, floors are finished, and we're waiting on the grid work for the drop ceiling to be inspected. I didn't even know you had to have that.
I know many of those functions have to be done by certified folks who meet state guidelines. But what percentage would you say of that work has been done by inmates? What would be your guess of all the work done on the building?
I would say 70% at least. HVAC has to be bid. There's not a lot other than duct work that they can help with. Electrical, they've helped with that. Plumbing, they've helped with that. And the roof, we didn't want any accidents there, so that was contracted out fully.
So I know your goal and part of this effort was to help refine or teach these inmates skills that they could use once they are, serve their sentences and get back out in the world. It sounds like that is being realized.
They're doing a good job. We've had a couple of setbacks, weather's being one of them, and just a hold up with some of the contractors and the flow of events. But overall, we haven't had any complaints on the inmate labor, and as far as learning tools, it's went both ways. So we're looking forward to working with the state and getting this parole office here in Henderson County moved into the building, and I know they're looking forward to the move.
Excellent.
Amy.
We also talked about something else in our meeting, possibility maybe someday having the public defender's office, if we could do that. We have a problem. The public defenders don't go down to see the inmates. And then when they don't see them before the preliminary hearings, and that creates a time frame that they have to go in and talk to their inmates. So the judges can't, you're holding up the staff and the work and the county attorney's office and everybody could, and a lot of things can be worked out. If you've talked to your client, you can go talk to the county attorney. I think the county attorney's been really open about willing to talk to them about cases beforehand, so you can try to settle them and work them out and decide which cases need to go to the grand jury or go on upstairs, or which ones you can keep down. So if we had them out there, where it wouldn't be such a, I don't know why it's Main Street to the jail so far, but I mean, I just had a client that couldn't get their public defender to see him before the preliminary hearing, and then they said, well, we won't see him. And he's got information and people that they need to go talk to as witnesses. You're going to lose those witnesses. They move or something else happens. I'm disappointed that that's the way it's working.
I think they're stretched thin. Everybody's stretched thin, but I know it's difficult to make it down to the jail. And after hours, I think everybody's just ready to head to the
When I was a public defender, you had to see your client before you went to court. I mean, that if you didn't, somebody's head was going to roll. So
Maybe in the future. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have in front of you both Sheriff Brady's monthly reports and the 2018 tax settlements, franchise taxes and oil taxes. Sheriff Brady, anything to add to the information in the packet?
Only the tax settlements for franchise tax. They've not been audited yet.
Okay.
Move to accept.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions on those or for Sheriff Brady? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Renice Abner, County Clerk, with her report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have today the payments to the county for the month of June 2019. Excess fees in the amount of $112,690.82. The total paid to the county, $157,435.30. Compared to June of 2018, excess fees are up $22,000. I also have the quarterly. Again, we operate on a calendar year versus fiscal. So for us, it's time for the quarterly report. And the total submitted to the county for this quarter is $450,304.41. As comparison, in the same quarter in 2018, we submitted $417,133.95, and our total submitted for that quarter increased $33,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? I will say, you guys are doing a great job. Did meet the revenue goal we budgeted for this past fiscal year that just ended, so way to go. And please keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Gold.
I know the meeting's been long enough, and I don't do this very often, but I would like to kind of explain the checks that you're going to be receiving today. This is somewhat extraordinary and something that I kind of want to inform the court about, take a little bit of a victory lap for my office. Kyle Evans, who's across the street right now, is unable to come over. I wanted him to be here to give him some kudos for this. Some of you all may remember about, I know Magistrate Putman will. A couple of years ago, when we had a budget session, I had received an email from the Child Support Commissioner about what they were going to do. Rather than give additional money for child support, they were going to say, oh, well, you can apply to the feds for reimbursement. And then they said, okay, but whatever is spent locally, you can get 133% reimbursed. And that sounded a little too good to be true. So I had him put that in writing, and it got sent to us. But it still sounded too good to be true. The fiscal court did do a $75,000 grant in the budget for that, and I never spent it. I never touched that line item because something just didn't feel right to me about it. And a couple of months later, we did find out that he was wrong, and it was not his fault. It just, there was a miscommunication between him and the federal folks. And he found out that it was a 66% reimbursement that we could get, which is still pretty good. For every dollar that we spend here locally, we can get 2/3 of that back. But it wasn't the 100% that you'd been guaranteed. So I said, well, we're not going to touch any of that fiscal court money just because it was appropriated with the idea that it was going to be reimbursed 100%. Now, this past budget session, you all agreed to do a $50,000 grant, knowing that there was this potential of the 2/3 reimbursement. And as part of working on the child support work group with this commissioner, I kept saying, well, now what about the money that we've spent locally over the last several years? Magistrate McCollum can tell you that there's money that gets spent locally. And they said, oh, well, that would be really difficult. Nobody would go through the process that it would take to get that reimbursed by the feds. I said, you know what? Try me. If there's a way I can get money for Henderson County Fiscal Court, I'm going to try to do that. And part of the remodeling that we did in our office is that put all the child support folks in one area. So we kind of have a self-contained child support space. By doing that, I was able to take the percentage of the building that we use, 3.77% on a square footage basis. Yeah, we had to figure that out. That was a lot of fun. But go back for the last few years and get 2/3 of the utilities, cleaning, internet, all of that reimbursed. So you budgeted $50,000 for us to use in a grant. We actually haven't touched that yet. I wanted to see if this process was going to work. But today we're bringing back to you $22,156.01 in federal reimbursement, and that represents a whole lot of time spent by myself, Kyle Evans, and Kathy Daigle, and bothering Brenda a whole lot and her folks quite a bit, trying to figure out exactly how to make this happen. I think the state didn't think anybody would go through this process to try to get this federal money, but we did. We went through this long process to make it happen. So you were budgeted to receive about $33,000 in this reimbursement for the entire year, and we still think you're going to get that. But we've already got you $22,000 of that already, and so I'm really proud of that and being able to get that for you and to turn that over to you. So I thought it was worth taking a little extra time to explain. It's not just the normal health insurance reimbursements or something like that you're getting today.
Excellent. Excellent news, and I think we all understand how arduous grant applications can be, especially when you have to go back in time. But I will gladly accept those checks and entertain a motion to accept those checks.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or compliments for Steve Goldstaff?
Yeah, thank you for a job well done. Thank you.
Yes.
The state, the federal government has always paid 66% of all the child support. And I think about 97, 98, 99, somewhere in there, the state was short of money, which they seem to always be, and they captured all the incentive money from child support to pay their bills, to pay their 33% that the state was having to pay. It turned out it was exactly the right amount. Martha Lane Collins had a special committee or a special group wanting to know, this is back in the 80s, of why Kentucky did so poorly in child support collection. And the federal government in Title 4D has it's a pretty strange way to do it, but they put in the incentive money, but they didn't say how it was supposed to be put in. They just said to the appropriate people. I always thought that was the people doing the work. and the state did not share the money with people doing the work. They kept it. And, of course, there was incentives work. And so Martha Lane changed it, and the incentives, the child support went like this, and the incentive money went up. We were getting about $200,000 in incentive money, and that's when the state captured it. And they promised they would fully fund the county attorney's office. I think Steve can attest they have never, ever fully funded. And Steve and his office has had to subsidize the child support collection. I mean, otherwise you'd have to pay for KRS books. You'd have to pay for everything you got. You'd be some duplications, but by having it all in that one office, it really has served as a good way to do it. But the state has really messed over the county attorney's office.
Maybe this is turning a new leaf here.
Yeah.
In some ways. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Gold. Brenda Ryder, County Treasurer, with some fund transfers and some claims.
I have some fund transfers from the general fund, $500 to the courthouse insurance, $500 to the Kentucky Coal Coalition, $20,000 to the refunds appropriation line, total of $21,000 coming from contingent appropriations. From the jail, in the jail fund, to the equipment repairs and maintenance, $50,000 coming from the building repairs and maintenance appropriation line. 2 interfund cash transfers to the LGEA fund from the general fund, $300,000. To the economic development fund from the general fund, $59,900. These are both budgeted transfers. A cash transfer from the general fund to the jail in the amount of $41,418. This is to correct electronic fund transfer made by the state to correct it to the proper fund. No.
To go over those first three real quick, the insurance on the building and liability, we made a guess at what the premium was going to be. The premium came in. It was $500 more than we thought, so we came close.
Yes.
The Kentucky Coal Coalition, Coal Mineral County Coalition, they raised their, I checked beforehand to see what their dues were going to be this year, and I was told $1,000. Well, they came in $1,500, so the board might have made a change of opinion, but we're going to pay that. And the refund line item, as you know, we're beginning to share the revenue from Forest Our Industrial Park with our partner counties, McLean, Union, Webster, as we should. And we're going to begin to do that more regularly, as we should. So Brenda has put a certain amount of money in that refunds line item, out of which we're paying those, just to make sure we have enough money in there at all times to do what we need to do. It won't be a big deal because, again, we're paying out revenue we get in. We just need a certain amount of money in that line item to make sure that she has enough money to write the checks back out. So we're just moving money from one place to another and make sure we can do that. Any questions about that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions about that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is that?
These are the bank balances after paying claims today. Your day-to-day appropriation line items should be at approximately 8.3%. I have 2 additional claims. In the general fund, $12,000 to mold medics. This is for mold remediation on the first floor of the courthouse. That is to come from the renewal and repairs courthouse appropriation line. The next is to meet audit requirements regarding training incentives for elected officials and other eligible employees. Court approval is now required.
I'm asking for approval to issue Magistrate Southern a check in the amount of $1,053.91. He has met his training incentive requirement, and this is to be paid with the August 8th, 2019 payroll.
Move to approve.
Second.
That's moved to approve claims, correct?
Correct.
Motion and a second. Any other questions on claims? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. And as Brenda mentioned, for payouts of future incentive checks, we will have to vote on these in court. Not a big deal, but we're making sure that everybody in the court's aware of the amount of money going out. Because remember, we pay those incentives out of our budget. The state keeps track of the hours, but the incentives come out of our budget. So like any other appropriation, we need to include it in the claims and vote on it.
Judge, I do think it's worth mentioning, though, when we talked this morning in the Finance Committee meeting, that our health care was going definitely in the right direction, because we come in almost $500,000 under the budget last year. So
I'm going to be talking about this more in State of the County, but we just finished, the just finished fiscal year turned out very strong, including beating budget in the health insurance line items by $500,000, and what we do with that money is we put it in a escrow account for health insurance claims in case we have a really bad year. And you know, we're self-insured, so we would have to cover that expense of a really poor year, and that fund is now up to $1.8 million. So we are well situated. We might even have to add more based on the recommendation of our health insurance consultants, because you never know what's going to happen. But right now we're in a much better position to handle any kind of catastrophic year in health insurance claims. So.
And the big part of it is it appears we're staying healthier. So
yes.
Brenda mentioned that typically, when out of 5 or 2 out of 10 years, you're going to have that crisis year.
Yeah, we're maybe due, but who knows? Okay. If anybody from the audience would like to speak for good of the county, please feel free to come up to the mic. Welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Heather Fade, and I'm the Henderson County Herdsman Livestock Club leader, and this is my daughter, Montana. You want to go in and pass some things around? We are here to represent 4-H. Next week, we will be having our livestock shows. So starting on Monday, my daughter is passing out our ham supper. We're not doing a breakfast this year. We're doing a supper. So we're giving out each of you guys a ticket to come and join us and eat country ham, baked potatoes, green beans, rolls, and all the desserts you can handle that the 4-H club members have made. That will start us out on our livestock week on Monday. And then she's also passing out a show schedule. And that tells you each night we will start at 6 o'clock, Tuesday through Friday, with dairy goats, market goats, sheep, cattle, and then rabbit, poultry, and swine is on Saturday, and dog. So we've got lots of kids that will be showing this next week, and we would love to see if any of you could come out and support our kids. Just come and watch. And on Saturday is our scholarship auction. So we will be taking our kids around soliciting to have sponsors. So anyways, would you like to speak and tell them what you... Okay. Could you tell them what you show in 4-H?
Yeah.
She's not normally this shy. We will be doing Speak Up this week, so listen for us on WSON. I've got several kids that will be representing different species, and they will be there to answer questions about 4-H and what kind of animals that they will be showing this year. So that's all that we wanted. We just wanted to come and invite you guys to our supper and to all of our livestock shows and support our kids.
Excellent. 4-H and FFA are two of the best youth programs we have in our schools, in my opinion, and it's nice to know that such a intelligent, talented young lady is going to participate. She obviously thinks it's fun, right?
Do you think it's fun? Yes, yes. Several of our children showed a multiple species. She shows dairy goats and chicken and rabbit and dog. So, and yes, last year she showed a cow. And if anybody was listening to WSON last month when we were on there, she let everybody know that her cow wasn't being shown this year because she's being bred. So,
well, learning how to do it, right?
That's right.
It's part of the business.
So thank you very much. And like I said, we would just like for you guys to come out and support our kids and show them that Henderson County, really wants to see these kids grow in the 4-H program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for waiting so patiently.
Yeah. And technically, the livestock shows are the last portion of our annual Henderson County Fair. And I believe we have some representatives of the fair with us. Looks like you want to give us maybe a final update on how things went with the first 2 weekends.
We would love to, Judge. I'm Louis Weber, Vice President of the Fair Board. This is Jonathan Eblin, President of the Fair Board, and his wife Carly. And, of course, our treasurer is Heather. As you all know, the 4th and 5th of this month, we had Lone Star Rodeo come in. It was a huge success. A lot of hard work went into the fairgrounds, but we couldn't have done any of it without the support of Fiscal Court, from the bleachers to the fairgrounds to Keith and helping seed, and it's just a tremendous effort that went into it. During the rodeo, we had people from 13 states come into Henderson, as far away as Montana, Oklahoma, Maryland. Lone Star Rodeo has been in the rodeo business for 70 years. They could not say enough good things about Henderson County, our facilities, and what we were trying to do. The support of Fiscal Court. When we first started this endeavor back, January, we wanted to do a chuck wagon race and get that involved in the community. Fiscal Court was the first ones to step up and say, hey, we want a chuck wagon. We want to support you guys. We want to be a part of it. And we appreciate that. And if any of you all were there, I know the judge was there. Keith showed up a couple times. I didn't see a lot of people. I was kind of busy, but we thank you for your support. And we want to show you our thank you by giving you a little memento of the chuck wagon races.
Hey. Fiscal Court chuck wagon. Outstanding.
Each of y'all get one, and the one big one for the court. So
we will hang that in a place of honor.
So we thank you all.
And I do think that addition to the rodeo this year was a big hit. If you'll look in the background of this photo, you'll notice the new bleachers that Mr. Weber mentioned, and that made it much more comfortable for spectators and to help accommodate more spectators than we had in the past. Sometimes we get chided a bit for the investment we make in our parks and our fairgrounds, and I'm here to say that those investments pay us back, both in quality of life for our citizens and financially.
Yes.
In the image we portray to people who put on these events and make them want to come back.
That's exactly right.
And help us, because not only do having good crowds help the bottom line of the Fair Board, they bring money into the community. So we really am glad, and we are glad that our investments help enhance your event, and we are glad that you and your volunteers take the time to put on this event for the betterment of our town and for the enjoyment of our citizens. And
It's our
great
pleasure.
job.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Yeah, I want to thank them too, because I got involved early on a bit, and I didn't realize how much work probably that was involved. Hey, these guys work, buddy. I'm telling you right now, that is a hot job, and they work. They really work, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
If anybody else would like to speak for good of the county, Magistrate Southard.
We finally dried up a little. We're still getting rain, which is good. We need rain, but it's at least not soggy outside now. So they're working on the roads, getting the gravel down, grading, doing the things we need in our district, and appreciate what they're doing for our county. And hearing very few complaints, so everything's good.
Excellent, thank you. Magistrate Moran.
Everything's in district too. It's a lot of the same things that you said, and the road department is always so helpful to me and has been good. And good to see my district too. Neighbors over here with 4-H. I love 4-H from the time I was a child, and I've been helping with the sewing part with the little girls. But anyway, it's a wonderful program.
Excellent. Magistrate Putman?
Thank you, Judge. Everything's relatively quiet in the 4th. All good. Unless Donna, do you have anything?
Is she a constituent?
She's in the 4th,
Yeah.
so I. Thank you, Judge.
Magistrate McCollum?
We do a motion to table that, since we did have it on the agenda. I mean, it's not on the written agenda, but that was what we.
Right. I think we should, as many of you may know, we're having ongoing discussions with the city about the 911 issue, and the City-County Cooperative Group is going to meet later this afternoon to begin to hammer out some of those further details that have come to light. And so we decided to table the effort to pass first reading of an ordinance until we get that all worked out. So if you want to go ahead and make a motion to table that until further notice, it'd be interesting.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Magistrate McCollum and a second from Magistrate Putman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything else? Magistrate Berry.
Thank you, Judge. And I think everything's pretty good in one. Without looking at the roads, if I can just get the boat ramp at Spotsville cleaned off and the river's back down, everybody out there will be happy, or most everybody. Everything's good. Yeah, that's true.
I'm sure you've given the road department a heads up on that.
That came in today on the way here.
Okay.
So I'm going to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Gold?
Things are good in the county attorney's office, Judge, especially since we're able to work out this reimbursement thing with the state. I can't stress how much of a big deal that is for us, and going forward, what we're going to be able to do with that grant that the fiscal court has put in, and still get that reimbursement from the feds. I think that's really going to allow us to make a big difference in our child support division. So thank you all for your cooperation in making that happen. The only other thing, Judge, is I do want to note the passing of a good friend of the fiscal court, Cindy Williams, with the school system. She had our judges scholars here with us, and she had a fight with her illness for a long time, and she succumbed to that recently. And I think that maybe when we have those judges scholars come back here after school starts, we make sure they know that Cindy was a part of that program and making that happen, and that that's part of her legacy, which is deep throughout this entire community and all the things that she's done. So I just wanted to note that, and with sadness, her passing.
Steve, I'd like.
As far as I know, we're the one in the state that went to the trouble of trying to get that reimbursement.
Thank you very much for mentioning Cindy Williams. I'd like to, I'll entertain a motion to rename or further name the Judges Scholars winners as the Cindy Williams Memorial Judges Scholars.
Judge, I would make that motion, and not to forget Roy Pullum, Cindy, and myself initially put that whole program together, and she was so important and helped in every aspect of it, and continue to bang the drum to promote that thing for all these years. So I would make that motion, or second your motion if you made the motion.
I'll accept a motion in a second. Is there a second? We will make that happen. I think it's a fitting tribute to her passion and her help in getting the Judges Scholars.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you for that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. I also pass along my congratulations to the staff at County Attorney's Office. That's great work. The State of the County address will be Thursday. I hope you all have plans to come. I encourage anybody who hasn't made reservations yet to call Kindle and make a reservation if you're a member of the Lions Clubs or Rotary. You can check with your leadership to attend. The news is good. I'm going to be detailing some of the economic data that goes beyond even what Tony Riddy presented to us today, and also my thoughts about the threats we still face in the county, the ways we could do better. But for the most part, the news is really good, and I'll say Thursday that I can attribute much of the success of county government to our people, our management, leadership, elected officials, and our team members. And I don't think any organization can move forward without complete buy-in from its team members. And I'm proud of the fact that we are there and getting better. So please come. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor can leave.